Greetings, greetings, greetings. This is Joanne Richards Goff from Kingston, Jamaica, editor-in-chief of the KW magazine, Crucial Connections in Faith and Culture. And we want to welcome you to episode 4 of Crucial Conversations. Whoa, yeah. Come, 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 make we worship Him. Come, make we dance and sing. Give thanks and praise to the King of Kings. Come, make we worship Him. Come, make we worship Him. Come, make we dance and sing. Give thanks and praise to the King of Kings. Come make we worship Him. Now we protect. Come make we worship Him. Come make we dance and sing. Give thanks and praise to the King of Kings. Yeah. Yes. We are here in the room from the KW magazine, Crucial Connections in Faith and Culture. And we are really excited about this conversation this evening. So, let me first of all tell you a little bit about the KW magazine. The KW magazine was designed to facilitate conversations about worship and cultural identity among persons primarily of African heritage, both on the African continent and in her diasporas, here in Jamaica, throughout the Caribbean region, in the United States, the UK, everywhere where there are people of African heritage. We want to have conversations about worship and cultural identity. We want to have conversations because we want to get to know ourselves better. We want to get to know each other better. And ultimately, we want to develop deeper, more authentic relationships with our Creator, Yahweh. And so, this is why we are here this evening. We are here this, I'm saying evening, but you may not be watching this in the evening where you are, because you may be somewhere where it is early afternoon, like right here in Jamaica, or you may be in Ghana, or you may be in Nigeria where it really is evening and it's late. So, the first thing you need to do is to share this feed with anyone that you think would be interested in having a conversation about worship and cultural identity. But more so, our special guest this evening, this afternoon, today, is our brother and friend, Mr. Tim Swain. Now, Mr. Tim Swain, let me tell you a little bit about him. He says, and I got this from his website, he's a change agent deeply committed to empowering leaders and serving underrepresented communities through his leadership, education, and arts. And one of the ways that he does this is through Anidaso 360, which is a nonprofit that revitalizes disenfranchised communities through education, economic and social advancements. And he also does this by educating people through powerful workshops, seminars, and poetry. And I would advise you to look up some of his poetry right there on YouTube, Mr. Tim Swain. There is one that I really like. It's called Stay Woke. Look for that one. And all of these platforms, he says, are pathways to help reach the underrepresented and to empower people to live their best lives. Now, I met Tim. I'll tell you how I met Tim. I went to a conference here in Jamaica. Was it last year, Tim? And
It was, I think, 2 years ago.
it was that long.
Yeah.
Whoa, it feels like yesterday. And so I went to this conference for the Jamaican Christian diaspora. And there was Tim, and the person who organized it introduced us and just left us to have a conversation. And we realized that we had so much in common. At that time, Tim Swain was living in the United States of America, in the state of Indiana, was it?
That's
Yes,
correct.
you may as well just leave yourself
Yeah,
unmuted
sorry,
because
sorry, sorry.
we're
Yes.
going in. We're
All
going
right.
in.
So yeah, that's correct.
So, so he was living in Indiana. No, I have lived in Indiana actually. I don't even know if I told him this. I lived in Indiana for
Wow.
9 months. Yes.
Wow.
Cold. I was there like from August to May, and it was cold the entire time.
Yes.
And right now, Tim and his family are living in Ghana. We want to welcome you to Crucial Conversations, Tim. And we really are looking forward to hearing about this process. Like, why did you decide to do this, and what were the challenges, and all of these things. But let us begin by you just telling us a little bit about your background. I mean, were you born in Indiana?
No. So first and foremost, thank you so much to the whole team and inviting me to Crucial Conversations. I will say as a side note, every time I hear like a genuine Jamaican accent, it makes me want to attempt to speak like that, but I know I can't. It just makes me want to, say things like, me want to talk like that, but I know it doesn't sound nearly as authentic, but but
Go
it
for it.
does.
I will give you the freedom to go for it because I know how I feel when people try to stop me from speaking French.
So, but thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and just for the whole platform of having crucial conversations. A little bit of a background about myself. I was born and raised in the United States of America. To be exact, I was born in Houston, Texas. I lived in Houston, Texas my entire life. And I moved and went to a very small town called San Marcos, Texas, which is like central Texas, to study for undergraduate and graduate school. I worked there for a while. And then when I felt like God was calling me to really serve more so with uh, communities of African descent, I moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, to work with an organization called the Impact Movement. And then from Indianapolis, Indiana, after 7 years, my family and I transitioned to Ghana. So that's a very, very, very concise kind of story of how I got from the U.S. to Ghana.
Oh, that's the concise version, but we
Yeah,
are going to, that's like the Cliff Notes
yeah, that's
version,
the
but
Cliff Notes. But yeah, we have definitely have more.
but
Definitely have more. Yeah,
but we are going to stretch it. So,
absolutely.
I mean, so you grew up, you see, one of the reasons why I want to have conversations with a wide cross section of people is that I think as people of African descent, we have so much in common, but we don't know, and we don't know each other. And we do have differences as well. I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
when I went to Indiana, I learned a lot about the differences between myself as a Caribbean person and the people who are African American. And so I really wanted to find out from you the things that we know here. For example, we're introduced to Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was
Hmm.
Jamaican, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And and Marcus Garvey had said Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. And we learned about him because he's a national hero here in Jamaica. But what were your influences toward Africa as a child growing up?
Well, every most of it was negative. I'll say that. So
Yeah.
I think there's been some very definitive moments in my life concerning my African consciousness. I'll say that,
Yeah.
and how it was awakened. Growing up, it was an insult to be called African. And what you heard was African booty scratcher. You heard that, the picture that was painted of the whole continent, first and foremost, made you believe that the continent was a country, right? Or some small place that housed all of these Black people. The second thing was the narrative suggested that nothing good came out of Africa. And when you looked at the stories told of people and contacts with people, it's often told from civil war or animals. There's
Animal.
animals. You had animal documentaries about, the lion chasing a zebra or something like this.
Yes.
But other than those kind of polar opposites, there was no histories and connections in
Hmm.
between. And so for me, there was subconsciously a negative association with Africa and anything African. So to call me African
Yes.
was like, you know, it
Such an
was an
insult.
insult. And it wasn't until I, the first book that I read, and I'll say this and I'll, pause for the other questions, but the first book that I read that kind of piqued my African interest was not the Bible, unfortunately. It was not anything that I read in school. It was the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Ah,
And when
okay.
I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, I was around 13 or 14. And when I
Hmm.
read this book of this man who was so solid in his identity as an African descended person, but not only that, as a person that was committed to changing Black communities, reading that book sparked something in me to want to investigate the possibility of having this same lineage of African identity.
Yeah. Well, so I was a little distracted on my Facebook page, just trying to see what was happening there. But so it was Malcolm X's autobiography that that started, and you were 13 years old when you started that
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was 13 when I started that journey, and I think which really speaks to the power of writing and the power of reading and the power of documenting your own story.
Wow.
And there is a proverb that says, "Until the lion has a historian, then the tales of hunting will always
Yeah,
glorify the hunter." And so it
that's
really
right.
talks about the significance of telling your own story. And so that was sort of a, a small but significant catalyst that started to
Yeah.
reframe what it meant to be Black,
Hmm.
in America. And of course, there's other experiences and, so on and so forth. But that was one of the major ones.
Yeah. Right. So no, it's been a long time since 13
Yes.
years old.
Very long time.
And how long? I mean, so you've been in Ghana for how long now?
Okay, so living permanently, it's about less than a year, but I've been
Yeah.
visiting Ghana off and on since 2007.
You've been visiting Ghana since 2007.
Yes,
Tell us a little bit about that. What took you to Ghana?
sure. So as I said, that organization, uh, the name of it was the Impact Movement. And in short, what happened was I attended a conference in 2006. First time I ever saw young Black Christians who were a little bit urban, a little bit hip hop. There were other
Yeah.
Africans in the diaspora, and it was absolutely culturally mesmerizing. The
Hmm.
president of the organization said, "Next year we're going to Ghana."
Ah,
And I didn't know how I was going to get there. But for me, it was almost like, an African American's Mecca, right? Like cultural Mecca.
that's
Like
right.
there's always this idea, like I'm gonna go back home one day to the motherland.
Yes.
And when he said that, they were doing a 7-week mission trip in Ghana, and I said, I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I think it was like $3,000, and I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And so, long story short, I arrived in Ghana in, I think it was July 2007, and we traveled all around the country, from way north to, south and different regions. And it was a 7-week mission trip, and it was transformative because of two things. Number one, it showed me that God existed outside of America, and if
Let me ask you, was
yeah.
there a doubt in your mind? I mean, did you at some point think that God only existed in America?
It's at this time I had recently became a Christian, like literally January of 2006.
Yes.
I became a Christian. The,
Mm.
the December I went to this conference. July the next year I was in Africa. And so my whole
Oh,
conceptualization about what it meant, I think, is divine, because the organization showed me how to live out. The organization showed me that there was no duality between blackness and Christianity. And the organization introduced me to the part of my African ancestry and identity by
mm,
taking us to Africa. And so it's not that I felt like God didn't exist outside of America, but America really does a phenomenal job at marketing itself and really making us, regardless of your black, white, Asian, but if you're living and born in America, you subconsciously believe that it is the greatest place on this side of heaven. I mean, that's how we're kind of raised to believe,
hey.
you know? And so when I went to Ghana, it was just kind of like, it's a simple thing, but it was transformative because I said, hey, God is bigger than what I imagined him to be.
Yeah.
And then culturally, it was transformative because the narrative had changed.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to this, it was what I thought was beautiful in women was mostly based on a Eurocentric standard. Um, what I thought it meant to be a proper, civilized, kind of like black person, right, was conceptualized in a certain way. And Africa was like this place that you go for either missions or helping people. But
Yes.
surely they don't have any kind of cultural, political, social,
Theological.
anything to offer. You just go and help.
Yes.
So when I went and I was just able to engage people, it was the first time in my life ever, and the only time that I was able to exist outside of the context of being a black person and simply living in the reality of just being a human being.
Mm. I remember reading that in the article that you shared with us in the second issue of the KW magazine, that for the first time you were a person and not
Mhm, mhm,
not a black person, but a person, not, an African American person, but
mhm, mhm.
a human being person. And I want to just take a pause, and some of you watching may be wondering, what is this KW magazine all about? So I'm going to ask Nora, who is online with us, to just share in the comment section the link to the ISU version, the online version of the KW magazine, so that you can get more about it. And if you want to download the PDF, there is also another link for that. So, okay, so yes, what had actually happened, is that Tim was kind enough to give us an article for the second issue of the KW magazine, and it spoke about his first trip to Ghana and the impact it had on him. And this is why we're having this conversation, to kind of, spread it or get to know him a little better and spread it out a little more in terms of what was in that article, as well as, really in the article, he never spoke about moving to Ghana.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
however,
yeah.
we know that he moved to Ghana, and you mentioned that Malcolm X was the autobiography of Malcolm X was one book that influenced you along this journey as a young person? And Marcus, Malcolm X's dad was a Garveyite as well. So
Mhm.
there comes the connection. And you've said a little bit about, one of the questions I was going to ask you is, here in Jamaica, there's not much talk of Africa in our churches. So,
Mhm.
you spoke about how how Africa was viewed, and I'm curious to know whether it's still the same today, or if it's, you know, has changed somewhat. But that is really how we grew up as well,
Mhm. Mhm.
thinking that Africa had to do with, Africa, it's ugly, it's poor, it's uneducated, and there was one other thing. Oh, that there's a lot of
Yeah.
witchcraft there.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so those are the things that we had focused on, um, about Africa. So, did you have any pushback from the church community? I mean, you speak about the impact and the organization that taught you so much. And if envy was not a bad thing, I would envy you, because because it's later in life that
Yeah.
I have had that
Yeah.
kind of experience. But was there any pushback from the church community?
Not really. And you mentioned impact, and I really believe that that was so divine because, unfortunately, growing up in church, and this is just my experience. Everybody's experiences are different. There was no conversation even about the Bible and its geography. Right? Who were these people? What did they look like? What is
Mm,
Cush? Where is that? We know that's Africa, but never having really substantive conversations about ethnicity and its integration within the scriptures and geography, and just asking simple questions like, what is this place that these people we're hearing about and we're reading their teachings, where are they from, what do they look like? Because oftentimes when that conversation arose, the response was, why does it matter? Almost like this theological color blindness. We don't need to see that because in God, you know, there's neither Jew nor Gentile, there's neither male or female. But the reality is, to understand the cultural context in which God has created us does not dismiss the authenticity or validity of the scriptures. In fact, it fulfills it and it
that's
brings much
right.
more life to it. And so that's why I feel tremendously blessed. I really believe God has called me to do what I'm doing because when I look at how things were orchestrated, January of 2006, I have a transformative encounter where I met the Lord, undoubtedly, unquestionably. March of that same year, I had an experience with this organization that just showed me that, wow, okay, you can be Black and Christian. I didn't know that. And then following that, I go to Ghana. That was a significant and pivotal moment in my life. And then the challenge was going back to church. And now all of a sudden, I'm needing more. I'm having more questions. I
Mm,
want to know more. And I don't want to jump ahead, but one of the things you asked about was books that have been transformative. And you know, pre-teen, I mean, in my teenage years, it was the autobiography of Malcolm X because it helped me see that this is what a Black man could be. He could be strong and fearless, and have some kind of theology or faith in God
mhm.
that compels him to action. And that was kind of opposite from what I saw growing up in the church, where I saw people that had this encounter with God. But I'm like, what are we doing in our communities? What are we talking about besides coming to church? The second book that I read that was transformative was in college. It was a book called Changes That Heal. And if anybody knows me, I talk about this book because it was written by a Christian psychologist. And it is all about maturing from childhood to adulthood. And it really talks about the integration of psychology and really theology. And it is transformative. One of the last books I read in terms of my spiritual formation was Black Theology, Black Power by James Cone. James Cone is a Black theologian
Mhm.
who was like myself, where being raised in the civil rights era, he looked at the Black church, the Christian church, and says, okay, they're saying this, but then the Muslim community or the Nation of Islam, the Muslim community is doing the action that the Christians say that they should be doing, but they're not doing. And so what James Cone said was, if I can take this love for Black people that Malcolm X has and merge it with the theology of Dr. King, that in essence kind of formulated what we know as Black liberation theology in the American context. And so that book was transformative because it helped me look at the scriptures in a way. And people have their critiques about James Cone. I hear so many people critiquing James Cone and how he looked at, you know, the scriptures and what may have you. But I'm gonna tell you, for me, it was empowering because it showed me a God that really, not just, I didn't have to wait on him to come back to do something. But it was a God that says, I've given you power to take your frustrations, your agitations, and all those things and do something with it. And you don't have to apologize for wanting to serve communities of African descent.
Yes. So you're saying, because I asked you a specific question, I asked you if you got any pushback from the church. And what I mean is pushback from the church when you decided you were going to move to Ghana.
Okay. Not really. My home church, they knew at this time, the church that I was at, they knew that I was, you know, I was teaching some of James Cone's classes at my church. And so when I told them that I was moving, there was just a genuine, you know, concern of like, you know, think about this, blah, blah, blah. But there was not really a, you know, a pushback because they were already kind of familiar with like, okay, this guy he's kind of Afrocentric. You know, I don't really know what he believes, but I know that he's into that African Black stuff. So it wasn't too far-fetched of an idea that I would move to Ghana.
I didn't ask you, but we hear about Black church and white church. Your church community, was it one or the other mixed?
My church was I would say 99.9% African American church. We had a couple sprinkles of other ethnicities in there, but primarily it was African American church.
Okay. So then, why Ghana? Have you done any DNA tests to discover your own country or ethnic group of origin? I mean, is it because of your early exposure to Ghana that you decided Ghana was the place?
I would say it's primarily because of my early exposure. I have not done any DNA tests. I'm not opposed to those tests, but to be honest, when I thought about the tests, I know that some of them primarily will give you, unless I'm incorrect, and I may be, they will give you results based off your region, right? And then we can look historically and know that, for generally speaking, most of the folks that are Black in America came from West Africa. I mean, that's what we know historically, you know, in terms of the transatlantic. And so haven't done any tests. And it was primarily because I had built relationship with the country and I was more familiar with the country. I feel embarrassed to say that I have yet to visit any other African country, but I will. It's coming very soon. It's coming very soon. But so that's really what it was. It was because I had a relationship, and the work that we do with our organization primarily is in Ghana.
Yes. So, I mean, over the years, how many people have you taken into Ghana through that organization? I mean, just average.
It's not a lot. I mean, I think we just, the organization started in 2000, and we officially started our inaugural trip in 2015. Mm-hmm. And so between 2015 and now, oh my God, COVID has just turned things upside down. But it's been a small number. I think about 4 dozen groups, because we started off doing one group a year. And we started with just me and one other guy who felt the same way as I did. And all we knew was we just got to take folks to Africa. So we've been slowly building up to get to a place of mobilizing more groups.
Yes. And is this Anidaso 360? How can people find out more about the work that you've been doing? And when the COVID-19 situation lifts, you know, I'm sure that you will resume taking people in. So
yeah, we're definitely working on that. So if people want to know more about Anidaso 360, the website is ANIDASO360.com. That's
Okay.
ANIDASO360.com. And from there, you can learn more about us. And if you go to, we actually should have this on our website, but we don't. But there's a really, really good video. I think if you're watching this, or you will watch this at some point, and you really want to know more about us, there is a really, really, really phenomenal video that encapsulates who we are and what we believe. If you just simply go to YouTube and type in our name, Anidaso 360, there's a documentary that we did that really surmises the history of why we do what we do, and even like the theoretical and kind of cultural framework that undergirds our programs.
Okay, great. So, Anidaso, Denise wants to know, what is Anidaso 360 about? Can you give us in a nutshell one
Sure.
more time? Yes.
So the word Enidaso is actually a word here in Ghana from the Akan language, and it
Yeah.
means hope. And so my colleague and I believe in revitalizing disenfranchised communities, spiritually, culturally, and professionally. And under that comes different things like economics and stuff. So what we do essentially is develop immersion programs. Right now, the one that we have is in Ghana. We're looking to expand to other nations. We actually talked a lot about Jamaica, of coming to Jamaica. And we also have some other initiatives that we do, like curriculum development. We have a curriculum now that's in its final stages that is for 7th through 9th graders that will teach character education and help them become more aware and conscious of their African identity through some great lessons and some great activity. So that's in a nutshell of who we are and what we do.
Yeah, great, great, great. So, Noro, I am sure, has put it in the comments as well, the link, so that people can go to the site and get more information there. So I visited the site and I saw some photos. Now, I was telling you earlier, before we went live, that I have visited Ghana. I cannot find my pictures. But anyway, I never made it to Accra though, as I was telling you. I took the
Wow.
bus. Yes, can you imagine? I took the bus from Burkina Faso and I took the bus um, to, oh, it starts with K, I think.
Kumasi,
Where?
maybe Kumasi.
Kumasi. Right. So the bus went from Bobo Dioulasso, from Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso to Kumasi. And
Wow.
then I took another bus to Cape Coast. And so I never made it to Accra. But the pictures that I saw there, I'm sure, are from Accra. So Denise is sharing her screen now with
Yeah,
us.
some of those actually are from. Let me put on my glasses. Trying to be cool with no glasses on. But actually, those mostly are from Cape Coast, where the infamous Door of No Return. That's actually a view from the Door of No Return, where
In Cape Coast.
yes, enslaved Africans. They
I
said that
thought
much.
it looked familiar.
Yeah,
Mm.
so that's that door. They said if you pass through this door, it is the door of no return. So that the photographer, wonderful young lady who took those photos. So that's inside the Elmina slave castle, door of no return.
Mm. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Where's this one?
That's actually on top of the castle Elmina, which is in actually Elmina, Ghana, and it is overlooking Elmina City.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not Accra, is it?
It's not a crowd.
Okay, next one.
So this is also, I guess I sent you a bunch of pictures from Elmina. I think maybe these were the most high quality pictures we had, but this picture is actually again from Elmina. The
Yeah.
photographer did a great job, but you're looking at two cells, one cell on the right, one cell on the left. The one on the right, if you look at it, the door has little holes in it. And that was for the British soldiers that misbehaved. And so they will be confined to that cell. If you look at the one on the left, you see a skull and cross on top. And we know that oftentimes signifies death. And that door has no ventilation. That was for the Africans who misbehaved. And so they will be locked inside of that cell, if you can imagine, in, by the ocean, humid, hot, no ventilation, no food. no light,
Mm,
if they decided to resist, which many of them did.
yeah.
And so that's what we're looking at.
Wow.
Oh, this is just a wonderful
Soursop.
fruit that you can get in Ghana. And this is actually a picture of just some, this is a picture of a fruit stand
Yeah.
that are everywhere. And so you see bananas, you see mangoes, you see lemons, and just, amazing.
Do they call those soursops? The green thing with the spiky.
I don't know what they call it here in Ghana. I
Okay.
know it's not that because I was looking for one time and they didn't know what I was speaking of. And I know they have different names. Like even the avocado is called pear.
We call it pear.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So maybe that's
So,
actually the name of it. Maybe we just messed it up in the U.S. I don't know and call it avocado. I don't maybe.
well, so we call it, so now people say it's an avocado pear, you
Mm,
know. But you know that the language in well, the tree language is very closely connected to the Jamaican Creole. And
I can believe
so
it.
there is that whole, there are a lot of Ashanti people who
Uh-huh.
came to Jamaica. And next week, we're actually going to be talking with a filmmaker
Yeah.
who who did a film about a young man in Jamaica who was of Ashanti heritage, and he went back to Ghana to find his roots. Yeah. What's in the bottles?
The bottles. Oh, those are they call them ground nuts, which are like peanuts.
Peanuts. Okay, okay. Peanut sauce is really good. Anyway. All
Yes.
right,
Yes.
let's see the next one, Denise.
Um,
Welcome,
so, so
lady.
this is in a place called Asin Manso. I may have mispronounced that, but this is the last bath, or what's known as the last bath. So Africans would walk from about 300 miles north on foot,
Mhm.
no roads. So you can imagine wildlife and all those things, people who died along the way. And this was about 30 miles from the castle where they would be shipped from. And so they would come here, have their last bath, be oiled up in palm oil and all that kind of stuff to make them look
Mm,
presentable. They will be given a little bit of food so they can, look like something that someone would want to buy. And
yeah.
then from here, they would go to the castle and be auctioned off.
Make them look like somebody that somebody would want to buy just feels, I don't know, creepy.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, next one. Ah,
What
this
is
looks
this?
good.
I think this is so we went to the AFRAC conference in 2017.
You want to
And
break that down,
oh,
Afreg?
yes, I'm sorry. So AFRAC is an organization that stands for the African Forum on Religion and Government. And the purpose of it is to really build bridges within the diaspora to see Africa rising together politically, economically, socially, educationally. 2017, they had a conference with about 200 delegates from, I think, about 20 to 30 nations from around the world. And this was I think this was just an amazing view from our hotel room. I woke up, opened the door, and then this is what I saw. The ocean just
Wow.
serenading us to sleep every night. I mean, this is, and this is the beauty that you don't get shown.
Yes. It's true. It's true. You normally see these little kwashioka belly children and this whole heap
Exactly,
of
exactly,
dirt. And, no, I mean, it's not to say that that isn't there, but it's also not to say that there aren't ugly scenes from
yeah,
first world countries as well, quote unquote, first world countries.
exactly.
And so we need to be sharing more pictures like these,
Yeah.
and say, yeah, okay. Moving right along. Who is this?
So this is Kwame Nkrumah. This is the first president when Ghana gained its independence, March 6, 1957. And so this is from Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. This is in Accra. So this
Yes.
is so this is in Accra, and this is a picture from his uh, park, his memorial park in Accra.
Great, great, great. And there's so much about him and the forming of the African Union and um, to move Africa toward unity and um, development and all of that, that we really, as African diaspora people, should get involved in. But that's
Yeah.
another story.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Is this the last one? No, Du Bois Museum. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so W.E.B. Du Bois, closely connected to Kwame Nkrumah,
Mhm.
had this Pan-African vision that Africa is for Africans,
And
and
he was in the he's American African American, correct?
yes, he was born in America, and actually, this is the latter part of his life. He moved to Ghana, and this is his home converted into a museum, which is also in Accra. And so, this is the W.E.B. Du Bois Museum that people can visit if they're in Ghana, and you can actually see, um, some of his works
Hmm.
and just kind of different aspects that catalog his life, his leadership, and his legacy.
Okay, great. Any more? Or is that the last? Oh, is that the no? I was
It's
looking to
the
see if they
last
were
one.
showing that shirt that you. Okay, Denise says this is the last photo.
Okay.
When I'll tell you this before you explain this picture. When I was in Burkina Faso, I spent a lot of time at the tailor because I just fell in love with African clothes and the
Mm.
fabric, and so that was it. So what was happening here?
I don't know where this picture was taken, but this is just a seamstress
Yeah.
that is sewing some fabric for someone, and it's common in Ghana. I'll say that I never had anything personally made by hand
Okay.
until I moved to Ghana. Oh, actually, until I visited Ghana. That was the first time in my life that I actually had anything made by hand. I felt very special. I said, "Whoa, this is tailor made for me." And so this is just a part of the culture,
Yeah.
that really displays entrepreneurship and creativity, and something that people can definitely take advantage of if they ever decide to visit. Some homemade clothes.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So now we are wanting to know exactly what was the process like. And I'll tell you, a lot of people who said they wanted to make sure that they caught this interview is that they wanted the details, how did you get from the USA to Ghana? Walk us through the process.
It was definitely a process. I'll say that um, Africa was on my mind from the time I visited. 2013, it was on my mind again, and I had an epiphany because by this time I had, grew a little older. Unfortunately, had some more abrasive experiences in racism and systemic justice, and my consciousness became more and more awakened. But I think the real catalyst happened in 2014 when there was a shooting of an unarmed black young man by the name of Mike Brown
Mm.
by a white police officer, and I went to Ferguson, Missouri, to march with the NAACP, which is an organization that is um, very historical organization in the United States
Mm-hmm.
that's focused on, racial reconciliation and civic justice for Black folks. When I walked through this small town in Rosebud, Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
you could have taken a still shot of the people's faces and put it in black and white, and it looked exactly like those pictures I saw of the civil rights era in the 60s. The angry, the vitriolic hatred and frustration, not from all white people, not from all black people, but enough to impact me. And right after this is how I was transformed. I mean, I felt never before have I felt just like an alien, right, in my own country. But right after this, I went to Africa for a trip to set up our 2015 group. And so several months in between these experiences, I'm like, whoa, like, how is it that I'm not even a human being in my country? But then I go to Africa and I'm just free. And I did another trip to do some setup work. And I knew something was changing in me because I remember flying through, I think we flew through Paris or Amsterdam, I'm not sure. And I started to cry because I came from Ghana, where my consciousness of what it meant to be Black and African, all that didn't even exist in Ghana. I'm just a human being. We land in Amsterdam, Paris, or wherever we were, and immediately, all the pictures remind me, you're Black again. Mm. And then going to work, and not only that, you had a slew of Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, so many other stories. And then it was like, why are we doing this? And so what happened was, I told my wife, I said, babe, I think we should move to Africa. I think we should go and help the organization develop more in Africa. And I want to go to school. And I know I don't want to go to school in the US because I want to study theology and African culture. And I know I'm not going to get that for the most part at a Bible school in the US. And that was in 2017 that my wife and I had the conversation. Yeah. So it took about 2 years. So 2017, we started having the conversation. And December of 2019 is when December the 4th is when we moved to Ghana.
Wow. What would you say? Okay, people have questions like how expensive was it? What was the most challenging aspect of it? And so hold on, your wife had no problem with this when you said, babe, I think we need to move to Ghana?
Well, I say a lot of things, so I think that sometimes my wife is like, I don't know if this guy's serious or not, because I say a lot of stuff. Sometimes I'm like, babe, I think I want to go to the moon, and so I say a lot of stuff sometimes, but I think when I really said, okay, we need to sit down and actually talk, and this was many meetings, like, let's take the whole day out. Let's talk about what this means. What are the implications of it? So it was a lot of planning. So I'm not, for anyone that's watching or will watch and interested, this was 2 years of planning, everything from finances to insurances to medical insurance to what will we do? How much money do we need? What is the cost of living? Where will we stay? Like, it was a lot of planning. But I think one of the things she told me was, because people ask her that same question, like, you gonna let your husband, but my wife is very centered in the Lord. That's number one. So she said to me that I trust the God that is in you to lead our family. And my wife has also traveled a bit, and she actually used to live in South Africa. It's very different than Ghana, West Africa, but she lived in South Africa. She's moved. She's been around to a lot of different countries. So she's very internationally exposed. And so I definitely think that helped, because it wasn't like I was speaking with someone who's never traveled. But I think the reservation she had was things that we tried to really have significant conversations about.
Wonderful. So, but just a little
the details. Yeah, the detail. Yeah, okay.
How expensive was it? How much did it cost?
Yeah. So I'll say that I also recommend that you can go to my YouTube channel, because I do have videos discussing the things I like about Ghana, the things I dislike, what to think about if you want to move to Ghana. So I talk about some of these on my YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is simply my name, Mr. Tim Swain. If you type that in YouTube, my channel will pull up. But I would say that if you're thinking about moving to Ghana in terms of expenses, it depends on where you're moving from, okay? But I was moving from the US, so the dollar to currency value in Ghana, it's called CDs, CEDI. Right now it's like 5 to 1. So for every $1 US, it's worth 5 CDs. So
I'm sorry, I have to press pause, because I remember going to Ghana. I went to Ghana in 2003, December. I became an instant millionaire.
Oh, because
I had $150 US. And when I handed that over, they gave me back 1 million CDs. I kid you not.
Yeah.
And I had to their counting.
Yeah. And that was when the old currency was like, the old currency is like millions or what may have you. So the new currency now is called Ghana CDs. So like, I think like 100 Ghana CDs would be like 1 million CDs. So to give people perspective, I would say like, in the US, now I would say we live very modestly, okay? We haven't owned a television in at least 10 years. We've been married 7, but I didn't own one before I met my wife. But we married 8 years. Oops, 8 years? We were married somewhere around that time, okay? 7, 8, I think it's 8 years, but but anyway, so we had a very modest lifestyle. And I would say that generally speaking, it cost us about like you can live a very, very, very comfortable lifestyle in Ghana with 20,000 US dollars. If you had 20,000 US dollars coming in annually, that's after you pay taxes, whatever, you could live a very comfortable life in Ghana.
All right. Who can work out the Jamaican equivalent and tell me how much
Yeah,
that would be?
somebody worked that out, and so
You know,
along with
just
that,
multiply by 150. Yeah.
so I tell people who are interested in moving to Ghana, there's a couple of things to think about. Your money, number one, like how will you obtain income? Like what will you do? And a lot of times people say, hey, you're going to Ghana, go start a business. It's like, it's a whole new country. If you don't know the layout of the land and the culture, you just can't start a business and expect to get paid in dollars, because that doesn't happen. You know, like the cost of living is different. For example, the picture that you all show with the fruits and all of that, you know, in the States, that would be considered organic fruit, which would be much more expensive than here in Ghana because it's not considered organic. It's just common, right? Like if I were to buy like 20 bananas in the US, that may be like $5, but in Ghana, that may be the equivalent of like maybe less than $1 or maybe $2 or something like that. So you can't think about it like that. So the first thing we had to consider was our money. Like how will we obtain income, and how, where does that come from? And so we did a lot of saving, a lot of cutting back, because we wanted to have an initial amount that would last us, you know, at least a couple years, which I recommend to people, unless you have a, you know, steady stream of income. But if you don't have a steady stream of income that's going to be coming in, I tell people that you want to have at least a couple years saved up, or what would be the equivalent of what you would need to live in Ghana. I just think that's why scripture tells us that, you know what I'm saying? We need to be wise and submit our plans to the Lord. And don't say just don't have no plans, just say submit them. So you got to have some. The second thing I tell people to think about is, you know, like, you know, I mean, how long do you want to be there? And I highly recommend people visit before they consider moving to Ghana, especially if you're from the West. Because if you're coming from a place like America, there are things that you don't know that you're used to, that when you go to Ghana, you'll be surprised by. For example, just like systems and structures, a light breaks down. I mean, a light goes out. You can call the electric company. You know, if you don't want to shop at this store, you'll just shop at that store. And the other thing is Ghana is very community. America is very individualistic. And so you don't necessarily need anybody to survive. But in Ghana, when you integrate into a community, for the most part, if you're not used to that community life, and it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be watching you, you know, go in and out your home, but it's really hard to describe if you haven't been accustomed to like real genuine community. And the last thing I just tell people is like, you know, what would be the purpose, right? Is your desire to be in Ghana stronger than maybe, let's say, your dislike for where you are? Because I'm gonna be honest. I don't think if I had not visited Ghana for the past over 10 years, and I just moved to Ghana without any context, I think it would be a serious conversation about moving back to the US, because it's so different. But I will tell you that hands down, no contest, it is worth it 2,000 million 100 times more than the small challenges to actually get here.
Wow. What would you say you like best about being in Ghana?
I would say the best thing is I didn't know what it felt like to be a human being until I got here. And I cannot describe to people what it feels like to wake up in the morning, go for a run, go pass by the police station and not fear that this may be my last day.
Mm.
I can't describe what that feels like. I can't describe what it feels like to go into uh, uh, a business, a barbershop, a bank, and I'm never worried that this person is watching me because I look black. I'm never worried that if I'm too loud, I'm gonna make all black people look bad.
Mm.
Like I'm never like that consciousness doesn't exist. And I tell people, not only does it give you, well, I'm just gonna speak for me, not only does it give me psychological well-being, but culturally, when I see how deep our culture as Africans go, Africans
Mm.
in it, and I'm just taking a glimpse of that, but when I see really how deeply embedded and how long and historical our story is, it is really like you become almost like a superhero because you get reconnected with a part of you that you didn't even know existed. And when you understand how historically significant God has created you,
Yeah.
and nobody can take that sense of identity away from you,
Yes.
you know. And not to mention that the weather is great. And I lived in Indiana, as you said, it was very cold.
Yeah.
But in
Mm-hmm.
Ghana, oh, the weather is every
Yes.
day the sun, almost every day the sun shines, and it is just amazing.
Well, I suppose, we living in Jamaica, we also experience good
Yeah,
weather most of the
yeah,
time. But yes, and being in Ghana, when I went to Ghana, it felt, it did feel like home to me,
exactly,
you
exactly,
know.
exactly.
Um, so,
Yeah. And,
so
and that's
what,
not to say that I don't
yeah,
have challenges. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I
Go ahead.
was just going to that.
Okay. Okay. All right.
That was
So
my next
we,
question.
we're on the same page.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not to say that, I don't have challenges. I think one of the misconceptions that what I hear from people is they view Africa, at least black folks in America, sometimes they view the whole continent in a very romanticized way.
Hmm.
It's almost like everybody is some king, like King T'Challa, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But everybody's like a king. And when they come to Ghana, it's going to be like the movie Black Panther, and everybody's going to, have this Afrocentric, consciousness. No, the legacy of colonization is evident here.
Yeah.
You know, um, I am, I am black and African, but I'm still a foreigner in Ghana.
Hmm.
So I don't know the language. I will be taking lessons though in Tree, which is one of the languages here, but I don't know the language. And so for the most part, I mean, you are a foreigner,
Yeah.
and culturally it is different because oftentimes we assume that because you're black, you have the same culture, but it's not like that.
Mm-mm.
Black folks in Brazil are very different than black folks in Jamaica. Black folks in
Definitely.
Jamaica may be very different from folks in Nigeria and what may have you. So the challenges I would say would be like culturally, we are different because we were raised in a different context.
Hmm.
There are also just the basic, hey, the system structural issues of like rolling blackouts. Sometimes the water doesn't work. Um, Systems don't work sometimes.
Yeah.
It's more dependent upon people and not systems. For example, let's say you have a electricity pole, and this actually happened to us, that
Hmm.
stops working. In the US, you can call the number, they'll send somebody out. You may even have an app that shows you where the person is and when they arrived and the work they're going to do. When a
Hmm.
person leaves, you can rest assured that the job is going to get done for the most part. And if it doesn't get done, there's a supervisor to call or somebody else to call to make sure that it's going to get done. Okay.
Hmm.
In Ghana, the light pole will go off. You'll call the electricity company. They'll tell you, oh, my boss, we're going to send someone. Don't worry. Someone is coming for you. Don't worry. You'll just be waiting for someone to come. No one will come at all. And you'll be like, why is no one coming? But if you know somebody,
Uh-huh.
then you can call the number and say, hey, please, and then they'll fix it. So I
Yeah.
think those challenges, and if you're not used to operating again in community,
Yes.
then
They get
it can
lost.
be very frustrating, very
Hmm.
frustrating.
Yes. I mean, when you talk about the light and power company and it feels like Jamaica. I mean, I've had encounters like those. And then somebody knows somebody, and suddenly something can happen because somebody
Exactly.
knows somebody, And as you were attempting to use the accent just now, I remembered a part of my experience being in Ghana was that, I mean, I was so excited to go to Ghana. As I told you, I was living in Burkina Faso. The official language there is French. I had
Mm-hmm.
to study French in order to function in Burkina.
Mm-hmm.
So I did 3 months, all of 3 months of language study in Switzerland before going to Burkina.
Wow.
So I mean, every day was like stressful, just to
Yes.
speak and listen and understand
Yes.
and be understood. So I was
Yes.
so excited. No, I'm going to a country where the official language is English. Have mercy.
It's not the same
Believe,
English.
believe you me, I discovered that the hard way. The
Yeah.
hard
Yeah.
way. I could not um I found that I could understand the Burkinabe French better than I understood the Ghanaian English.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I'd spent more than a week there, then eventually I would have got, more accustomed to hearing and understanding. But there was a woman asking me my address when I went to buy a bus ticket, and I couldn't figure what she wanted from me, honestly. So
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody had to come and translate her English to me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how I felt in Jamaica too. When I first arrived in Jamaica, I said, and the guy was
Uh-huh.
driving us around and he was speaking. And all I heard was, man, what do you want to do? And I'm like, what? I said, okay, I'm in Jamaica for real. I don't understand anything at all.
Listen, you need to say that and say it loud, because there are people here who are still glorying in the fact that our official language is French. But when people land at and they're not French, sorry, English. But when people land at the airport, they realize, no, somebody tricked them
I could not
because this
understand
is not English.
anything. I mean, I was like, and that's how it is sometimes in Ghana, And I think that that's why for us, we want to really study the language. I'm in school right now, so once I finish with school, I'll be focusing more on that. But because language really is a bridge to culture,
Yeah.
and most cases, especially now that we're wearing the face mask, people don't know that I'm an outsider. People don't know if I'm from another country in Africa or America. They have no idea. But the assumption oftentimes is I am a Ghanaian. And so people will speak tree or guy or something like that to me. And I don't, unless it's like the simple hello, goodbye, how are you, where do you
Mhm.
want to go? I don't understand anything. And so, um, but it's a bridge. And I think that also has been a challenge, especially one of the things my wife talked about is, just communicating ideas to people and
Yeah.
knowing that even our English, the words don't have the same meanings. It's like speaking like from the Black English vernacular. And when I speak this way with some of my Black friends, I can speak in a way that some other people don't understand.
Yes.
It's a bridge, right, to culture. And so,
Mhm.
we definitely want to bridge that cultural gap by learning the language.
Yes, I would love to. I mean, I have heard recently that Ghana is actually just about 3.5 hours away from Barbados. And we've always thought that Africa is so far
Mm.
and we just can't go there because it's too far, But I'm really looking forward to um, seeing more Jamaicans traveling to the African continent. Okay, Nora, Denise, are there questions out there coming from or people who are watching?
I
Yes,
sent
sir.
a question in the chat.
Okay, so Nora sent a question. Kenya Taylor Walsh from Facebook is asking Tim to speak on the transportation system. What is it like to get around?
And
Yeah.
before you go there, there is a King Blessing, I think from Zambia,
Yes,
Lusaka, Zambia. He
yes.
had a comment, but it's in a language that I cannot read, so he needs to translate.
Okay.
Okay, so should I go with the question about
Yes.
transportation?
Transportation.
Okay. Is that Kenneth? Okay, Kenneth. Oh, yeah, I think that's someone from Indianapolis. So when it comes to transportation, actually, I just did a video on this. There's like four major ways to get around in Ghana. One is like the city kind of like bus. They call it a trotro, right? So imagine a 12 passenger van gutted out. Now like 16 people or 14 people fit in it. And those go pretty much everywhere throughout the country, generally speaking. I live in the central, a Greater Accra area, so that's like where most expats and stuff live. So I can definitely take a trotro anywhere. The other way is they have driving apps here, like Uber. There's a couple local apps called Bolt and Yango, and so it's you just download it on your phone, takes you to where you want to go. The other way is taxi. Taxis are everywhere. And then there is a bus system here. I've never taken it. Like big buses. I don't really know where they go, but I know that they do exist. I've seen a lot of them on the road. And then last but not least, it's just, personal transportation. If you have a motorcycle or you bring a personal car with you. We don't own a car. We mostly take Trotro and the driving apps.
Well, I know for sure that some of these buses go to other countries because
Oh
I
yeah,
did
yeah,
take a bus from Burkina.
yeah.
That's a whole nother story for another time. Um, I just took a look at the time, speaking of time, and there are questions I want to ask you, but I realize that we've gone beyond our time and I want to I want us to look at one or two of these final questions that I
Sure,
had.
sure.
One was, what advice would you give to others in the diaspora concerning contributions they can make toward meeting needs in Africa?
Um, I would say it depends on what organizations they're connected to
Mhm.
and what they're doing, and where they want to invest their money. Oftentimes, when we think of Africa, we think, unfortunately, in a parental or like kind of philanthropic role, like, oh, I have to give this money to give shoes, right, or paint a wall. And I think those things are fine. But if you can find an organization, a church, or what may have you that is doing some significant work here, I tell people to invest because there's no shortage of need anywhere in the world. And whatever you give to a credible organization, I think it can help. You can always donate to any DASO on our website.
There you
Uh,
go.
we work with energy sustainability. We work with entrepreneurs. We also help provide meals and school fees for about 300 kids in Cape Coast. And so, we're also doing some work. If you want to invest in that as well, we definitely would take it. It is tax deductible if you're giving in the U.S. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I remember staying at a little hotel in Cape Coast, and the manager of the hotel asked me if I couldn't bring some women from Jamaica to interact with the women in that community to give them a sense of um, identity and
Mm.
self-esteem and this kind of a thing because he felt it was so lacking there. And I'm thinking, I wonder if he knows that all of Jamaicans are not like what he sees
Mm.
through, I guess, through Bob Marley and the Wailers, through the I3s, through those Jamaican images that come across as being strong. But even though we have need, we can also help to meet other people's needs. So
Yeah.
this is it. Thanks for sharing that. And then
Problem.
finally, you have a young son.
Yes.
And I know that there are challenges in the US raising Black male children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is perhaps, I don't know if this was a part of your consideration when you decided finally to move to Ghana, to get out of the United States. Um, and even Well, that's a whole not another matter. Let's just look at the United States. What advice would you give to a father raising a black male child in the US?
Um, I really believe that God has given us the responsibility to break generational issues.
Mhm.
And I believe one of the ways to do that is exposing your children to their African ancestry and identity. I
Hmm.
also believe that at some point, a part of your religious commitment has to be exposing your kids to the continent of Africa. I mean, that's what everybody can't do it, but I really believe that before we before we invest thousands of dollars in a preparatory school education, I believe that if you took that same money and exposed your children, just like me, for 3 weeks or 1 week, that in itself will be more transformative than some of that misinformation that some of the children will get at the school. Um, and I think we have to reconnect with our um, African descended brothers and sisters in a diaspora, because these are really, really, really tough times. And the last thing I'll say is this: when I thought about the stories I heard from my father to
Mhm.
prepare me for life,
Mhm.
unfortunately, a part of it had to make me smaller, because now I'm not just a person, I'm a black person. But if he didn't teach me these lessons, he would have ill prepared me to survive in America.
Yeah.
And I asked myself the question, do I really want to give my son, like transfer to him those same experiences of inferiority for the sake of survival? If I
Mhm.
don't do it, I'm a bad parent, because he has to know the implications of wearing a hoodie, the implications of what it means to be black, or explain to him what he's seeing on television. And for me, I couldn't do that.
Ah.
Not right now.
Mm.
And I believe that he for right now, he just needs to know that he exists as a human being.
Mhm.
And so I just encourage all black folks, rethink your theology, rethink your education, rethink how you're raising your children, and connect them to their identity. Because once they know who they are as African descended people, you will be giving them a gift that no person can ever, 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 ever take away from them.
Wow. Wow. Just wow. That, in a nutshell, is gold right there. And it's not something that we have been saying to our people, certainly not here in Jamaica. And I am praying, people, if you're watching, just share this with someone who needs to hear even that last message at the end. I mean, I'm going to have to go play it over and memorize it, because we we need, it's time for a shift.
Time for a
It's
shift.
time for a shift. We need to know who we are. Every morning we wake up and we think about who we are, whose we are, and what is our purpose here. But we can't figure out the purpose
Mm.
until we know who we are and whose we are. And if we're spending our time with our children, just trying to get them to fit in and measure up according to the system that we inherited from our colonizers,
Mm.
then
Mm-hmm.
we're going nowhere. You
Mm-mm.
know, we're going nowhere. But we need to cross it. As I was saying to you earlier, them say nobody can cross it. Or who can manage the water? Well, we have a book. It's called The Holy Bible. And it is amazing the things that we can find in that book as a person of African descent to connect with ourselves, even that you would, growing up, we thought it was a white book written by white people, primarily for white people, but we can get something from it. It is so much more than that. But anyway, I think that's where, wow, we are ending today. I want to encourage us to support the work of the KW magazine and these crucial conversations. You can see how crucial this conversation was. And I'm telling you, Tim and I will be continuing to have conversations so that we can get to know ourselves better, get to know each other better, and develop deeper, more authentic relationships with our Creator, Yahweh. And we will be sharing as much with you. So if you want to see these continue, you can support the work by downloading one or all of our magazines, the digital version. We have an e-store, and Nora is probably right as I speak, sharing it again in the comments so that you can see where to go. Spuropen.com, KW Magazine has an e-store there. And apart from the fact that there is amazing information in there that is just really a launching pad for these crucial conversations, is also the fact that you could be contributing to the ongoing work. Is there anything else that anybody else in the Zoom room wants to say or ask or share?
Thank you. Thank you for the
Give
time.
us that kind of time, considering that the time is out. But going back to the pictures that he shared, Glenise and I were commenting on it. I think Glenise was saying that I mean, the place is beautiful, but I felt a little traumatized just looking at the prison, the picture of the prison, the one with the holes, the door versus the one without the holes, and who was placed where, and then the picture with, I think you said, the last bath just before they but I wanted to ask you, you you've been to those places, the pictures that were depicted, right?
Yes.
What were your feelings when you saw it for real? Because we, as African descent, we rely on pictures in books, we rely on the description given in the literature, but to see it, to actually see it, I'm wondering, what were your feelings, what were your thoughts as you saw those places?
It honestly, it's like for me, my soul was thrown in a tornado because I began to hate white folks. I began to hate anybody that wasn't black, and most of the people that we take with us have some type of response like that. And what I try to do to reconcile those feelings is really knowing that this story, in terms of the African story from the beginning to now, it's unfortunate. No. It is egregious.
Yes.
But it is a small part in the bigger God story of who we are. But only education opens up that. And so for me, knowing pre 14th, 15th, 16th, whatever centuries, okay, it provides clarity and context. But it's very difficult. It is very difficult. And there's tears. There have been fights that have broken out between white or Europeans and Africans after going through the slave castle. Yes, there have been people that have just been so frustrated that one word has triggered. This last thing I'll say is anytime we go, because of how culturally and emotionally intense the environment is, we never send our people in a group with Europeans. We never do. So
Very wise.
when we take a tour, we can't do it because the people are so emotionally aroused that somebody may get injured or it will take away from. Dr. Keisha Ross is a psychologist, and she talks about these sacred spaces where Black people need to have spaces where it's only for us and it ain't for nobody else because of all the trauma that we've had.
Exactly.
And so to invite other people in those spaces really interrupts the authenticity of living that moment. And so we never take people, our people of African descent who identify as African descent with Europeans because
wise.
Somebody may get knocked out.
Yes.
Somebody may get, and it ain't gonna be one of us. I'm telling you.
No, it's serious. You know. So remember, I told you I went to Ghana with this young white British girl, and we went into the castle together. And I am telling you, well, there weren't blows, there were tears. We both wept together. She wept over what her ancestors had done to my ancestors. I wept over what my ancestors had to go through in order for even me to be born on this side of the world. And it was really a deep, emotional is probably just too mild a word to describe. We didn't have enough tissue, I'll tell you, and there was just snot all over it. It was ugly. It was not a pretty cry, you know. But yeah, Denise, that's a great question because it took us in even deeper. Glenise, I don't know if you have.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I made sure that I connected from both the computer and the phone today. Mr. Swain, thank you so much. Sister Joanne, thank you so much for having this program, and thank you for your time, Mr. Swain. I don't have a question, but more so a reiteration of a combination of the narrative that was discussed, the discourse. And in the comment, I had said that I am just in awe, and the conversation, seeing the pictures was just really refreshing. And I'm not turning a blind eye to, what our ancestors went through, but just being taken back through the pictures. And really that's how I, personally can live through somebody else's experiences, because I've never been to Africa. And just seeing the pictures and everything, it just reminded me of where I am today. It reminded me of what others would have gone through. And it is coincidental because I was having a conversation with a friend up to this morning, and we were saying that, it was somewhat necessary looking at the bigger picture. And, Mr. Swain alluded to it a while ago. It was necessary so that whatever it is that we are experiencing today, for us to be born on this side of the world, for Jamaica to be what it is, for Jamaica to be able to say out of many one people, but yet we have predominantly African heritage. It was necessary for God to have done that, for us to be able to say that, we have ancestors there, because had it not been done, we don't know where we would have been today, and we don't know what this side of the world would have looked like.
Glenise, thank you for sharing that with us. And it sounds like a topic for another conversation, actually, because I know that there are some people who look at it differently. And there are some people who would want to say, this wasn't God's doing, this was man's doing. But God has somehow, because he works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, then no matter how bad the situation is, he's able to turn it around for our good and for his glory. Wow, there's just so much to look into, because even as you're sharing there, Glenise, I'm thinking about how Mr. Swain, as you call him, is me just bright enough to call him tame in a public. But anyways, he said that we need to rethink our theology, that we need to rethink our education. And what else was it you said we need to rethink?
And just reconnect with our brothers and sisters in the diaspora.
Exactly. So, those are things that now that we're this side, you see, being this side could mean that we have taken on the clothing of the Europeans and of our colonizers. But it doesn't have to be that way. And for another time and another place, because we need more time to unpack this, is, is there really any hope for us as people of African descent to achieve our highest potential in this space using the systems that we have inherited? Or has Tim chosen the better part to go back with his family to the land from which our ancestors came? As I said, is a whole nother thing for us to unpack through continued conversation. Malachi 3, verse 16. Then those who feared the Lord spoke with each other, and the Lord heard them.
Mm, mm,
Yes, and the book of remembrance was opened. I'm going to stop there right now because it is now 2:26. And so we're going to declare the blessing. May I beg God to bless you and keep you. May I beg God to smile upon you. May I beg him to show we him love even though none of we no deserve it. And may I beg God to look upon you and go no in peace now and tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.